All right, here we go. Illini Drive, Brendyn. Two-man show once again. Myself, Jake Hasan, with Brendyn Jones. Everyone else is covering basketball again. So it's just the two of us flying real solo because our main man, Jason, had something pop up, but he was nice enough to start the recording for us, and we could just talk to each other in this empty room. It's not lonely at all. So here we go. Lots to talk about today, though. Lots to talk about, a lot of Illinois sports to talk about, football and basketball. 2 games coming up, and then some big football news, but we'll start with basketball. Playing the Citadel tonight. Citadel's 1-3 already, Illinois 3-1. Of course, ESPN has the spread at 27. Illinois is favored by. Wow.
That's crazy.
Okay. I knew it would be big, but I didn't expect it to be that big. Illinois coming off the win against Hawaii, a game that was closer than it should have in the first half. But then Illinois pulls away. They end up winning 66-53.
Yeah.
I thought that was the best Illinois looked all year. Granted, it's only been a few games, but I thought they looked really good, especially in the second half. Seemed like some guys got cooking. There was a lot of stretches where certain guys were feeling themselves and they were shooting really well. But what was your biggest takeaway from the Hawaii game before we get into Citadel?
I really like that even though they struggled in the first half, which we've seen them do kind of all year.
Except the Arizona game.
Except the Arizona game, which was weird. They
Flip-flopped.
They were able to, really, especially halfway through that second half, just, flip a switch and be able to outclass a team that they should have outclassed since the beginning. And that was good coming in because we saw how Arizona went halfway through that second half. It was the reverse effect. So it was really good. I think Illinois' defense in the first few minutes of the first half was really, really good. A lot of block shots, a lot of, really good contested layups. The bad part about that was that they also couldn't score in the first, couple opening minutes. I think in the first, they didn't get their first point until maybe 3.5 minutes into the game off a Kofi free throw. So I think that's what I like the most. Along with flipping that switch, it was like individual players that flipped that switch. So Kofi Coburn in the second half looked like a completely different person offensively in the first half. In the second half, he looked like he was getting any bucket he wanted to around the rim. He was setting his feet more. He was really low in the post instead of being high, which is something that, when he gets high in the post, he might not have the footwork, to get back low, and then he'll try to maybe force a long layup, a hook.
We saw a couple long hook shots and where he seemed surprised by how far he was.
Yeah, exactly. But I really liked in the second half, whatever adjustments they went over, he was really getting the ball in the low post. And, I mean, if he's anywhere between 5 feet of the basket, who's going to stop him in reality?
Definitely.
So, I mean, that's what I really liked. And I think that's what really changed the pace, for Illinois in this game. You saw them, we talked about it before the game. Hawaii had 3 7-footers, and you saw them actually make an impact in that game. There was the one who fouled out late in the second half, but after he fouled out, that's kind of – he fouled out in that transition where Illinois was getting it going, and then after he fouled out, it was
smooth sailing.
So.
Kofi Coburn, another double-double. He's just a machine right now.
Yeah.
And that's what you love. It was tied at half, as you mentioned, and then Illinois pulls away. There's some things that are still worrying me with this team, namely turnovers. Still kind of some issues with that. I do like to see Kofi get more comfortable. I like that stretch where he dominated like we just talked about. I thought Georgie looked better. I thought Io looked a little bit better. There was a stretch there where Io was really kind of getting whatever he wanted. So that leads us into the Citadel game, where you're favored by nearly 30, and you should really, really take care of business against this team. There's no excuse not to. You need to come out hot. You need to get your guys going. I imagine we see the same lineup again with Felice starting. I still, and I'm going to keep hammering this because I think this is what's going to happen once we get to conference play. I feel like you need to see DeMonte Williams and starting because he's just that glue guy. He brings it together. He's only scoring 2 points per game, but that's not really what he does anyway. You never count on him to be a scorer. But someone who we weren't expecting to score, going back to the Hawaii game really quick, was Kipper Nichols had a good game.
Yeah.
He kind of came out. He was getting some shots. He was making some hustle plays. The only question now is this Kipper for the entire season or is this Kipper for a week? And then we go back to the guy who just frustrates you and he's making some plays that make you scratch your head.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the key to this season. Will the Illini be able to to kind of rely on this senior in his last year. He did look really good against Hawaii. He was getting buckets. I know he had the kind of post turnaround layup that was an and one.
Yep.
That just like it looked like those are the buckets he should get because he's a big guy.
Yep.
He's very athletic. He hustles a lot. So if he can make those plays, those physical plays, especially those hustle plays, and he doesn't make the wrong decision, I mean, he's going to be a guy that's really important for this team throughout the year, especially in Big Ten play. Coming off that bench and being kind of, another guy that's really pushing that bench forward, especially if Andres Feliz goes back to the bench. Because then you'll kind of have that duo that is really experienced on the court and can lead that, bench unit to be able to compete offensive-wise with what Io and Kofi and Georgie can do on the floor when they're starting.
Yeah, and I think that Kipper is a really key piece of that. Not even just Kipper, but finding someone who can play at that three consistently. Because Benjamin Bosmans-Verdonk, he looked good in the exhibition, but has only gotten 17 total minutes over the other 4 games, or 3 games, however many. So, you deal with that, and then you also have, DeMonte Williams, but whatever, and then Tevian Jones, obviously suspended, a guy who we were all expecting to really contribute to this team, and hasn't really, which is disappointing to say the least. But you go into Citadel, you're probably going to come away from this game 4-1, more than likely. But still, there's still room for this team to take steps forward, and I think that starts with the turnovers.
Yeah.
You have to stop making those turnovers.
Definitely, and I think if they limit their turnovers, this could be the first game that they win that's like from the first minute to the last minute, convincing. Like, just convincing. They were never in the game. It wasn't tied at half. Didn't have to go to overtime. You didn't lose the lead because you're favored by 30 points. And this is the game that you kind of want to, your starters are kind of getting, the feel for the game. Kofi's getting the feel for the game. You saw that in the second half of the Hawaii game. Georgie's kind of getting back. You saw that in the second half of the Hawaii game. Io will always, I think, be able to do what he does. So, your main 3 guys are getting their footing in this season. This is a game that you want to see, Illinois up double digits by halftime. And then you want to see them, come out in the second half and kind of grow that lead. And then that's when you want to see, BBB, play in the second half. You want to see people that don't normally, get to play in these situations play because, you still have a relatively, easy non-conference, schedule, but you want to be able to, when you get into the Big Ten, you want to be able to look back at this and be like, oh, he can play in these situations. Oh, this is what they can give us, in a game time atmosphere. And I think that has to start tonight against a team that you're favored by 27 points.
I would love to see Bosmans-Verdonk. I think that's the one thing, like you said, this should be a game that you are in control the entire way, start to finish. And if you see Benjamin Bosmans-Verdonk, that means that's happening, which is what you want to see. But to your point about these guys gaining their footing, of course, Illinois Twitter is one of the most explosive places to ever be concerning sports, especially football and basketball. But, there's people on Twitter and who say, who are worried about this team. Like, they haven't looked as good as they should. Nicholls State and Hawaii then, and we got blown out against Arizona. Well, this is still a team, like you said, finding their footing, finding their role. Georgie is still adjusting to a new role. Kofi is adjusting to college play. And Brad's still tinkering with these lineups, figuring out who he can trust out of DeMonte and Kipper, and hopefully soon Benjamin Bosmans-Verdonk. But also that point is Nicholls State looks better than we thought they were going to be because they beat Pitt, and they had another good win too, I think. At GCU is always a tough place to play. I mean, notoriously hard place to play. Arizona's going to be a top 10 team at some point. And, I can't really explain the Hawaii game, but they seem like a team that is scrappy and going to be a bubble team, and you pulled away at the end, like you should have.
And the way they described, that Hawaii game was that they were getting the looks they wanted to, they just wasn't falling. And I mean, sometimes it's going to happen in basketball. Right. And I mean, then in the second half they were falling. I think, to your point about, these people or these players getting into, new positions, Georgie has never really been. Even in high school, he was never really, that number 1 option on his team. He wasn't even heavily recruited. Brad saw him recruiting somebody else. You know that story. Right. And then, Kofi, obviously he's getting into college. Io he, was the man, in high school. Last year he was even the man. And now you look at, Kofi and Georgie, and, you have to share the ball a little bit. Obviously, Io wants to win, so he's not going to go out there and, put up all the shots. He wants to get other people involved. He wants to show He's a playmaker. He can also shoot, when he's open.
Well-rounded.
He can play defense. He wants to show he's well-rounded. So these are all players, in different positions on the court than they've ever had to play. So I think when people say, they don't look as good as they should, you have to realize that that's kind of the point of, having this non-conference schedule, is that you get adjusted so that you understand your team at its best when you go into the best competition, which would, be your conference.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You have to tinker with these things now so that you can figure it out when you're in conference play. And hopefully, ideally by the time Miami comes to town, because that's going to be a tough game, and that's going to be your first real measuring cup game. Not sure if that's a saying, went with it, whatever. Let's do score predictions and what we expect. What else we expect, final expectations for this game. I expect Illinois to cover. I think Illinois is supposed to, you get a big spread like that, you're supposed to cover. I think Illinois wins this game 82-50. I think they're in control from start to finish. This is Citadel. You're supposed to take care of what you have to take care of. I want to see Benjamin Bosmans-Verdonk. I expect a lot of Kofi and Georgie because that's what you need to work on the most. So I expect them to hammer that, especially that pairing, and hammer that home and work on that chemistry because that's what you're going to have if you're going to be a tournament team.
Yeah, definitely. I think that they win this game somewhere. I think they put it close to 90, probably around 87 to. And I say they give up a little run, especially maybe to start the second half or even in the beginning of the first half. So it'll be 87 to maybe 65. But it'll be pretty much convincing throughout the whole game. I think what I'm looking for is, especially in the beginning, for somebody to step up, whether that's Ayo, whether that's Kofi, whether that's Georgie. I think
we're counting out Trent too. Trent
had
a lot. He was getting some good looks. They weren't falling, but eventually those, like you said, those will start to fall. He was getting great looks.
That's kind of what makes this team so interesting is that you look at the top three and then you forget about Trent, who was first team all freshman. His freshman year was really good. Is a great shooter, can get his shot.
Yeah.
Has kind of an underrated handle. Looks for people, can also score around the rim. So this team, I think, is deeper than a lot of people give credit for.
Yeah.
And I think you'll be able to see that in games like this where you might get a lead early and then, Brad's like, all right,
you can work on some stuff.
Play. Trent get his shot. Maybe, Georgie, you take a couple threes. Put BBV in and see what he can do. So I'm really looking for maybe Ayo to step up, maybe get to that 20-point mark for, I think, the first time this season. Kofi, I think I want to see him get another double-double. I'm not sure about, how big this team is against Illinois, but, I always assume that he's going to be one of the biggest people on the court, so I want him to get another double-double. I think this should be a really convincing win for Illinois, and hopefully tomorrow we can see a W.
I would like to see, my final point is, I want to see if Kipper can roll over Monday night's performance into this and see if he can start to establish himself as a consistent contributor and someone who you can focus on and rely on because he has been so up and down in his career here.
Definitely.
But let's move to football. Before we talk about the upcoming Iowa game, we have to talk about the dismissal of defensive tackle Larry Oladipo. Very serious allegations against him that apparently the DIA and the athletics department found to be convincing enough. He's been dismissed, and these were amongst domestic abuse and domestic violence allegations. You know the story. If you don't, you can look it up. That's not really for us to go into. But this is someone who, from a football standpoint, this is someone who you've been doing this all without. I don't think this is a huge loss for Illinois football. Maybe further down the line because you get a little bit thin next year especially, and you're going to have to count on guys like Jamal Woods and Calvin Avery to step up, which you'll need. But for right now and for this team right now, you're fine. Yeah. You're okay.
This team, I think, especially, on the defensive end, is totally fine. I think that this team has been winning without him since, that Wisconsin game. So I don't think I think that this is more of a distraction that's now kind of finally over.
Right.
Rather than what's going to happen.
Right.
So I think that, because, they don't talk about it a lot, but when they do, they say that like he just isn't participating in the team anymore. Right. And now they're not in this limbo. Well, is he on the team? Is he not on the team? He's not on the team. This team can continue to win, without him, without the distraction that he brings to the team. So I think, it's a good way for Illinois football to kind of move on from it and to continue what they've been doing without that distraction in the locker room.
I definitely agree with that. I think that Lovie Smith and the team and, Josh Whitman, I think everybody handled this the right way, whereas they just let it play out. They didn't feel the need to go out there and say and give updates and all this stuff. They just let it play out. They let it happen. And then when the decision was final, they said, all right, this is what's happening. We're moving on. I think that's the perfect way to handle it. I think that's the perfect way to let things like this happen. Because like you said, then it minimizes the... You're right?
Actually, yeah, I'm thinking about it now.
It minimizes those distractions, those potential distractions, and your team can continue to focus on what's important, which they clearly have been doing over a 4-game win streak, which leads us directly into our conversation about Iowa. Illinois, underdogs by 15 points. I don't think that line has moved, but, this is a team where they're hot, and Iowa, we talked a little bit about them on Monday, but this Illinois team is hot. They're feeling good, and I think this Iowa team is beatable. They just beat Minnesota, sure, but I still think Iowa has their weaknesses.
No, I think they definitely do. I think that Iowa is very confident because...
Oh, as they should be.
Minnesota was rolling.
Right.
And, they just took Minnesota out pretty convincingly.
Yeah.
It got kind of close at the end, but, I feel like anybody who was watching that game kind of knew that Iowa kind of had a control over that game.
Sure.
But also, Illinois is confident. They 4 wins in a row. They're coming off a bye week. They've been scouting. I think that we've talked about this before. This is going to be a game where defenses matter so much. And you see Illinois leading the Big Ten in however many stats. Iowa's also up there. So it's going to be, I think, it's going to be a very close game. It'll be, a lot of defensive takeaways. And if you like low-scoring defensive takeaway games, I think this is going to be your game. So I'm happy that I'm going to be at it. Yeah.
The over-under is at 47 right now. I think that under definitely hits.
Yeah.
And actually, Illinois is getting another point. So they are underdogs by 16 now as opposed to 15. Mm-hmm. But on Jeremy Warner's show this morning, they had on 24/7 Sports' beat reporter for Iowa. Mm-hmm. And he said that this team is beatable and it's going to be a slugfest. And he pointed out that Reggie Corbin is the big X factor here. Reggie obviously has not had the year that we thought he was, especially following last year, but still a solid year, and especially because, if you had this emergence of Dre Brown, I think Illinois can run the football. I think they should, and then when Brandon Peters comes up and he gets in that zone, he's a clutch play machine.
Yeah.
Him and Josh Imatorbhebhe have been excellent all year. They've been incredible. They've had that connection clearly, especially on those jump balls, and I think that as long as you just play sound fundamental football and just keep hammering away, eventually Iowa's going to break.
Yeah.
And, and Minnesota almost did it. Mm-hmm. Minnesota just kept hammering and hammering and hammering. It was too little too late, unfortunately, for them. But you saw that Iowa has these weaknesses. And so I think that this team is really beatable, especially if you limit their rushing attack.
Yeah, definitely. That connection to Brandon Peters, Josh Imatorbhebhe that you talked about, I was looking at it. Brandon Peters has 16 touchdowns. 9 of them are to Imatorbhebhe.
That's crazy.
I think that just shows how good Josh Imatorbhebhe is and how much Brandon Peters trusts him in that single coverage especially. And that's what killed Michigan State was that I was looking at the TV the whole time. I'm like, every time it was a pass play, even that 4th and 16, I was like, nobody, they have one person. Yeah. They don't have anybody on the zone on top, and they have one person on Josh. He's gonna make this play if everything goes right. Imatorbhebhe will come down with this ball, and he did. And every time he was in single coverage, I'm like, it's going to go to him, and it went to him. I think Iowa knows that now, and they're not going to single cover him. I think they're probably...
They can't afford to.
Right. They can't afford to because he's such a big playmaker that, we've seen it multiple times where he breaks a tackle and runs up the sideline for a touchdown. Or against that Michigan game where there was 3 people trying to tackle him. He's just so big that runs over one, jukes out one, scores a touchdown. You can't, in a game like this where I think the spread is way too far.
I think so. I think 16 is way too large.
Right. You look at Iowa, 24 points a game, right? And that's not including what they just do in conference. I think I saw a stat that last week when they were playing Minnesota that it was maybe 16 points a game in conference. Illinois has a really good defense. You have to think that if everything goes right for this Illinois defense and they play defense like they played in the second half against that Michigan State team, Iowa maybe scores 20, 24 maybe.
Yeah.
But you also have to look at if Illinois is able to do what they can do offensively, especially with Josh Bebe, they put more than what Iowa allows at 12 points a game. They have to at least put 2 touchdowns, a couple field goals. So I think this is going to be a really close game, and nobody's really expecting that because I think the history of Illinois and the fact that Iowa's ranked.
Yep.
And
what happened last year.
And what happened. I mean, of course, what happened last
Recency
year.
bias.
Like, that was just, I mean, I've never seen a game like that where it's just touchdown after touchdown after touchdown after touchdown. But I think that everybody knows this is a completely different Illinois team, and I think you're right. It does start with Reggie Corbin. If he's able to, and Dre Brown, if they're able to make that presence felt in the beginning, and you don't have to rely on Brandon Peters' arm, then when it gets down to it in the crunch time, that's when you go to Josh Bebe. Right. That's when you go to Donnie Navarro. That's when you go down the field. And, that's when, if you establish the run game early, that's when Illinois has that chance to make it a very good game, especially in the second half.
I think Illinois is going to make this a good game the entire way. I don't think that it will ever be more than a 10-point deficit for Illinois. I think they're going to keep hanging around. And it's hard to not feel good about this game the way that this team is playing. Mm-hmm. Now, this is a hostile environment at Iowa, but you just won a hostile game at Michigan State. Yes, Michigan State is a worse team than Iowa, but Illinois getting some guys back. Olawale Batiku back at practice. Yeah. Jake Hansen hopeful to start practicing again soon and will possibly play. So those are 2 huge defensive guys that you get back. Adding Olawale to Batiku, especially to a defensive line that's already been playing well, a guy who was a sack artist in the beginning of the year, it's hard not to feel good about this team. And, of course, the offense is already clicking. Mm-hmm. We're going to get to predictions soon, but I'm trying to rationalize which way, because I don't know which way I want to go with this yet.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, it's just crazy to think about, even right now, how far this team has come.
Yeah.
And how different they look in the beginning of the year. Mm-hmm. We were talking about it in the beginning of the year. Man, their front, 8 looks good on defense, but they can't cover anybody in the pass. And now they're getting, pick sixes in the end of the games, to kind of make it a close game, especially in that Michigan State game. And you're saying that this defense is leading in takeaways, interceptions, stuff like that.
Right.
So I think it's weird to look at Illinois right now and say, like, this is the same team that we saw lose against Nebraska.
Right.
So I think it's weird. I still don't know which way I'm going to go. But I think it'll be a really entertaining game. I would not be surprised at all if Illinois comes out with a win, and then you're looking at you play Northwestern the week after and 8 wins. It's crazy.
It's possible. I mean, you're looking right at it. Like, you're looking at, because right now you're just stacking wins for better bowls.
Right.
So
exactly.
You've already gotten to where you want to be, but now, like, you're still feeling good because you're on this hot streak that you didn't know. And you feel like always when you're on a hot streak, you feel like it'll never end.
Exactly.
So it's hard to feel like, we don't know. It's pump the brakes. Like, you have to feel good about this team. There's no way you can't.
And that's the thing. I think that's so good that, they had to get to this Michigan State test because they were down 28, and it would have been so easy to be like, okay, we shouldn't have won to Michigan State.
Right.
And it would have been so easy to look ahead and be like, we have Northwestern. If our goal really is to just get to a bowl, we can cruise through these next 2 games and then beat Northwestern and we can get to a bowl. The fact that they came back in that game I think is super scary for the rest of the teams in the Big Ten because it shows them that they really, really, they aren't just on a fluke. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to come back in the second half, like on a second half deficit or in a late second quarter deficit down 28 points. It's hard in any sporting event, especially in Big Ten football.
Especially.
So, I think this team is very scary. But I think that makes it a point that Iowa has prepared for this team. Mm-hmm. So, they have to find creative ways to get Reggie Corbin involved. Dre Brown needs to, keep rolling. I think the passing game needs to be crisp. You can't have a lot of drops against this team. You can't kind of throw it into double coverage. You can't make mistakes against this Iowa defense, or they're going to make you pay.
They are going to make you pay, and that's what's really, really scary about this because Illinois has made these mistakes before, but at the same time, if you make mistakes, Illinois can make you pay.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. So that's why I think this is just going to be really cautious, sound football because neither of these teams want to give up that big defensive play that completely swings the game. Let's do predictions, all of that being said. Illinois, 16-point underdogs, as we said, at Iowa. Illinois, 4-game win streak. Iowa coming off a huge win against Minnesota. I think Illinois... I think they lose. I just can't. It's hard to bet against a team that has that big of a win at home. I know Illinois wants it. I know they want it bad, and I don't blame them at all. But I can't see it right now. Even if they get these guys back, I think Illinois just barely loses this one. I mean, I'll say a 17-14.
Yeah.
I think Iowa squeaks by.
Yeah, I think that is a really good, way to look at it. It should be a close game. It's going to be a heartbreaker for whoever loses this game. I don't think it'll be anywhere near what it was last year, which is good because I will have to sit through that. But I think, just to go against you, Illinois wins. I think they win in a fashion that like breaks Iowa, whether that being a last-second field goal like what happened against Wisconsin, or that last-second touchdown, which happened against Michigan State, or a takeaway that kind of ends Iowa's last drive or something like that. I think that's how it happens. I'll probably say 20 to 20 to like, I want to say a weird score because I want to see a safety in here somewhere.
Okay.
I'm gonna say 20 to 15.
20 to 15.
20 to 15. Iowa gets one touchdown, 2 field goals, and a safety. But and then Illinois gets 2 touchdowns and 2 field goals.
Okay. Oh, so you're going.
Does that make sense?
No,
Did I do the math?
No, you messed that up completely.
Are you sure?
You said
7?
20 to 15.
Right, 7.
And you said you had Iowa getting a touchdown,
7,
2 field goals,
6. That's 13.
Okay.
And safety 15.
Okay, no, you're right. All right, never mind. All right,
cool.
you're right.
We're
good.
good.
2 touchdowns and 2 field goals.
Journalism majors can do math.
Math. All right. I misheard you there. That was super weird. All right.
That would be like my ideal situation though, because I love safeties.
Oh, definitely.
They're fun to watch.
They are.
But
you're absolutely right.
They're also like huge momentum killers. But but yeah, I think it's a really close game. I think Iowa's driving at the end of the game to kind of have that comeback win, and Illinois does something, whether that be a stop, whether that be an interception, a fumble recovery, something like that. That'd be my ideal situation.
Yeah, I think the defense is going to be huge. You have to get takeaways, I think, if you want to win this game.
You have to.
Because you're not going to win a shootout. I think that's never going to happen where Illinois wins a shootout game.
Yeah.
Unless they're just rolling over Rutgers, then I guess that's a shootout, but just mostly for Illinois at the gun range or something. But
I mean, Iowa's not the team to put you on a shootout, though.
No.
So, I mean, I think that's good. Like, It's not like they're, playing, I guess, Wisconsin isn't either. They're going to run down your throat. I don't know.
Ohio State.
Ohio State, that's a great one.
Yeah.
They're not playing Ohio State, luckily. We don't have to see them.
So if Illinois had to go against Justin Fields,
I wouldn't watch that game.
That'd be tough.
So good.
He is very good.
That's what's crazy about the Big Ten is that like Ohio State's just up there and they deserve to be in the college football playoff.
Right.
And like you saw Minnesota, like that second team maybe, they nowhere near Ohio State. Like I feel like if Ohio State played, you saw when Ohio State played Wisconsin, just dismantled that.
Oh
team.
yeah.
So I think Ohio State is just leaps and bounds above, or not leaps and bounds, but a huge step above. All other
they're a
Big Ten
significant
teams.
tier above.
Right, which sucks because it's Ohio State.
Right, which is tough to watch, but Justin Fields is so fun to watch.
Yeah, he's really good.
Fun. But that's a good point. Let's talk about the college football playoff. Everything's the same. LSU, Ohio State, Clemson, Georgia. And I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
All of those teams won big, or convincingly at least. And then you still have 5 and 7 as Oregon and Oklahoma.
Right.
Fine with that. I have no issues with that. I think that's perfectly fine. Oklahoma had a huge win over Baylor. You could make the argument that Oklahoma's win over Baylor should have put them above Georgia maybe, but Georgia had a nice game against Auburn in a game that Auburn really wasn't in the game until the end, and Baylor took Oklahoma until the very end. Baylor had a chance to win that game, and they had the ball at the end of the game, and they had the chance, but they missed that opportunity. To your point about Ohio State being the only real Big Ten team in this conversation, I still think Penn State has an outside shot, and they still they would have to win the Big Ten, which is obviously we just talked about Ohio State, but there's an outside chance that you have two Big Ten teams and only one SEC team in LSU there. But I think that everything is the same, but I feel like Clemson, they don't scare me. Clemson, I don't think scares anyone, and I was talking to someone today who made a really good point that Clemson this year feels like 2014 Florida State, when Jameis was really the only really thing that you were excited about that team. Everything else was just kind of meh. But they were undefeated because Jameis was still really good and leading that team, and then they got embarrassed by Oregon, who was another elite team with Mariota.
So,
yeah.
The only thing I would say to combat that is just experience.
Sure.
Clemson's been there and been there and been there and been there. And, I mean, obviously anything happens in football. But I think that's kind of the biggest thing that they have on them. They just won last year. I mean, I think college football shouldn't – I feel like in the pros you kind of see it when a team wins, like they might slack a little bit.
Right.
College football I feel like is different because it's a lot of new guys. A lot of guys leave. And it's kind of a new experience for a lot of people. New starters, new everything is new. So it's kind of a different thing. But I think Trevor Lawrence is still there. You know, those are the guys that are gonna from top to bottom make sure that this team is still experienced. Now, you know, if they go in and they have to play Ohio State, you know,
that's tough.
It's tough. It's definitely if they have to, you know, if they fall and they have to play LSU, it's gonna be tough. So it's gonna be. I mean, obviously it's college football play. It's gonna be tough no matter who you play. You're not just gonna roll over anybody. So I guess we'll see. I'm not sure if how unconfident I am in Clemson though.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And I think if you're a Clemson fan, you're still very confident in this team. It's just that they don't, from an outside, like objective standpoint. Man, words are not working for me today.
We're getting there.
Objectively, looking at this Clemson team, there's not a whole lot that like scares me because their defense isn't as good. They lost a lot of guys to the NFL.
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence is still there, and Travis Etienne, their running back, he's going to be an NFL running back. But it's just kind of like I don't feel like super like, oh, yeah, they got it. Like even at the 3, it feels like, all right, 3, like I feel like Georgia could be 3 and Oklahoma could be 4 over, or even Oregon over Clemson. Of course, once they probably get there, they'll turn it on, they'll find another gear, and then we'll all look silly. But I still feel like I think I would take Georgia right now over Clemson. Like I think I could see Georgia winning that game, and then of course if that happened, Clemson would just embarrass Georgia probably. But that's not the point.
Does Alabama sneak in?
So I was just going to say that someone who I think is dead in the water is Alabama because really they don't have anything. To get in the playoff, they were already going to have to beat LSU in the SEC championship. And that's just not happening with Tua. Without Tua, I mean. Because you already couldn't beat them with him, really. And so, you know, without him, if they had Jalen Hurts still, I would say maybe.
Right, of course.
But now, of course, hindsight, you're thinking, all right, well, Jalen Hurts on Oklahoma, I don't think Alabama sneaks in. I think they settle for a nice bowl. They're still going to get a really good one. But I think they're firmly out of the playoff conversation.
Yeah, which is, I mean, it's kind of refreshing not to see them in there.
Well, just like you talked about, disparity and how things turn over in college football.
But this isn't as good of a team as we've seen in the past 3 years.
Agree.
So, I mean, I think in the past, 3 years when they were in there year, it was easy to see them in there because we knew they were the best team.
Right.
We knew that they were going to be, you know, on Monday night, they were going to be there facing whoever had to play them. They were going to be there. And I mean, sometimes they lost, sometimes they won, but that's just football. I think this is the first year where we're looking at them, especially after Tua got hurt, and we're like, yeah, maybe they don't deserve to be in there.
Right.
And I think that's good that they're not in there. Now, if they beat LSU in the
SEC championship,
and, you know, they sneak in, that's just Alabama magic or something.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, I mean, I think I like the top 4 right now.
Yeah.
You said Penn State, has a chance to sneak in. I think they definitely would have been in there, lost to Minnesota. So yeah, I guess I'm scared that if they beat Ohio State, then they're gonna take Ohio State out. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's why, like, when it was 2 undefeated teams, Penn State, Minnesota going against each other, I really wanted Penn State to win because I felt like Penn State was better and I felt like they had a better chance to get into the college football playoffs. And that would have been 2 Big Ten teams in the college football playoff, and that would have been cool. But I think that as a Big Ten fan, I don't want Penn State to go to the Big Ten championship and beat Ohio State because at the very least, if they go undefeated, they're guaranteed a spot.
Right.
So, I really want Ohio State to beat Penn State.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Fields needs to be in the playoff. We need to see him on a bigger stage. As far as Alabama, it looks like their backup quarterback is Mac Jones, a sophomore. All their other quarterbacks are a freshman.
I'm rooting for him because we got the same last name. I don't even know what he looks like.
All right.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, you can look that up on your own time. But he's a sophomore. All of their other quarterbacks on the roster are freshmen, other than Tua. Yeah. But Alabama, and he's done okay in cleanup work against Mississippi State, Arkansas, Tennessee, Ole Miss, and USM. He's done fine. 3 touchdowns to 1 interception. It's all obviously mop-up work, but. Right. I mean, maybe Saban picks these guys for a reason, so who knows?
Is true.
But
and yeah, I mean, I think that's probably their biggest advantage is Saban. So.
Oh, absolutely.
So I mean, like, look, if they, in the next 3 weeks, whatever happens. But I think it'll be
blow everyone out 60-0.
That'd be insane. But I mean, Alabama's Alabama, so.
Yeah, exactly. On the topic of Tua, real quick, because this will roll over into our NFL talk too. Everyone was saying, "Oh, this is Bo Jackson's injury. Oh, this could be career-ending." People forget that Bo Jackson's injury was 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And he still played football on it and baseball on it, and he made it exponentially worse. This is 2019.
Yeah.
It is where the best facilities, best, doctors ever are available right now, especially for a guy like Tua, and they immediately diagnosed and he was off that hip immediately. He came out of surgery. They said they expect to make a full recovery.
Right.
So, and I'm going to tie this into the Bears.
Yeah, I know what you're going.
Is Tua still a top 5 pick? Do you take that risk with guys like Burrow? Because Burrow, I think, was already in the conversation for number 1 overall. I think this solidifies it.
Right.
But you still have Herbert. You still have Fromm. And you still have a couple other guys from Utah and Washington where they were, pushing first-round grades, maybe second-round grades. Where does Tua fall in now?
Are you talking about in terms of quarterbacks or straight picks?
Straight picks and quarterbacks. I guess that they're 1-1, but
I wouldn't be surprised if he falls later in the first round, even if he goes in the second round. I was thinking about this the other day, and just off the top of my head, I didn't research or anything. I couldn't think of a vast majority of teams that really, really need a new quarterback, right? Because I was thinking about all the teams that picked up quarterbacks 2 years ago, teams that picked up quarterback last year. There's still a lot of young quarterbacks in the league. There's still a lot of, you look at Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers, all these guys that are solidified. I don't think it's not like any of them are retiring this year, you know, or it would be surprising if they did.
It would be very surprising.
So I think the biggest thing is that not a lot of teams are out there looking for a lot of quarterbacks. So if Tua isn't a top 5 quarterback pick, he might fall back into the second round. Now, I think where you're going with it is, do the Bears pick up Tua if he's available with their first pick in the second round? Maybe, probably. I think you have to pick the best available quarterback. But that also depends on what they do in terms of trading.
Right.
I know you mentioned Marcus Mariota.
Yep.
I know a lot of people are talking about Cam Newton. I think it's just, regardless of what you do in the trade market, though, you also have to draft a quarterback.
Right.
Because say you let Mitch Trubisky go and you have, let's just say Cam Newton, right?
Okay.
You don't know how healthy he's going to be, for the rest of his career. He's obviously, when he was fully healthy and when he was doing his thing,
not vegan.
And not vegan, right? Exactly. He was one of the best.
I said this on the show before.
No, and I might have to agree with you, but he might have been. He was obviously the best quarterback in the league for that one
MVP
MVP season, and he might have been one of the best dual threat quarterbacks of all time. Yeah. now that he's injured, you really have to look at it. Obviously, he hasn't been healthy for a while. So, I mean, I guess the Bears, if he's on the team, they give him a shot if he's healthy or not. But I think you also have to draft a quarterback because any quarterback that you're going to go get in the draft, in the trade market, is a what if.
Yep.
Right? Marcus Mariota, you don't know how well he can perform. Obviously, you saw him do great stuff in college. You don't know how well he's going to perform. If they try to get Jameis Winston, you don't know how well he's going to perform. So you have to draft a quarterback to make sure that you always have a backup plan. And if Tua is the best available quarterback, no matter what about, injury history, but, you have to get him.
Right.
And, I really liked your point that you brought up about, medical facilities. Like, this isn't 1988,
right.
and say Chicago has a really, really good, Northwestern
Chicago,
rush.
People go to Chicago from across different leagues for their surgeries. He's already at Alabama, which we know how much money is pumped into that football program. Exactly. CBS Sports right now, and their latest mock draft that came out today, they have Burrow going number 1 overall to the Bengals, and they have Herbert going number 4 to the Dolphins. Yeah. And then they have Tua going to the Patriots with a 31st pick in the first round. Huh. CBS Sports, and I think every mock draft, always likes to think that the Patriots will take a quarterback. Yeah. But if we're being honest, Brady's going to play for at least 4 more years, it feels like.
Probably.
And so there's no point in taking a quarterback right now for them. They have other areas where they can, address. The defense doesn't really need anything but tight end, wide receiver, whatever. And the Patriots, I think it's always the fun thing to do, to project the Patriots to take a young quarterback to groom behind Tom Brady, whatever. I think if that was going to be someone, it'd be like one of those guys from Utah or Washington, someone who is so under the radar and then just comes out of nowhere and is awesome.
Yeah. It'd be like somebody that nobody really expected.
Right.
And the only person that's really been watching him is Bill
Belichick, yeah.
And, Bill Belichick, nobody had to tell him because Bill Belichick's not going to be like, oh, look at that guy. Like, he's good. He's going to keep that to himself. He's going to be like, yeah, I'm going to draft him in the 4th round.
It's on a piece of, it's one sticky note that's folded up under his mattress at his vacation home.
He doesn't tell Tom. He doesn't tell nobody. No, it's just him. He's like, yeah, I know exactly what I'm draft.
So
in 12 years, he's going to be 3 Super Bowl champions.
Yeah, exactly. And so that leads me into this Bears conversation, because they have 2 second-round picks. Mm-hmm. If Tua does happen to fall into the second round, I'm right there with you. I think that you have to take that quarterback because, like you said, there are other teams that are going to be after Teddy Bridgewater, Cam Newton. You might have to settle for Ryan Tannehill or Marcus Mariota or, God forbid, Jameis Winston. Like, you might have to fall back on one of these guys if Cam Newton stays in Carolina or goes elsewhere. Or, if one of your main guys or Bridgewater signs a max deal somewhere else or with the Chargers or something like that. So you're going to have these backup plans. And you're telling me if Tua is there in the second round and you have an opportunity there, you're telling me Ryan Pace, who likes to get aggressive, and you're telling me Matt Nagy, who has been able to use this much of his playbook, isn't going to. You're telling me Matt Nagy's not going to kick down that door and say, take him, please, God, take him.
The thing that's crazy about it is that if you need a quarterback and he's the best quarterback available, you take him.
You take him.
Because, you have to think about it in a best case scenario. Right. When you start thinking, you can think about anything in the worst case scenario and it's not going to be good, right? So, but if you think about it in the best case scenario, even if, a middle case scenario happens, it'll still be, probably better than what we have now with somebody who you can't really run an offense behind, not because, he doesn't have the skills, but because he might not be there mentally. And you take a person who played for Nick Saban, who's been to how many national championships in his time at college, you really have
won one and has lost the other one because the talent around him wasn't great. But
exactly. But so you have to take this guy from a winning culture and try to insert him into an offense that I think would reflect kind of well with him. And if it doesn't work, you have a draft the next year. And you have Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence. You have all these players that are going to come out, and then you have another try at free agency at the trade market. Mm-hmm. So I think anybody who thinks the Bears, if this random fan really wants them to pick a quarterback and Tua's available, if they don't think that Tua should be the one that you pick, they're just not thinking about it logically. Right. They're gonna be like, oh, he's gonna hurt his ankle, so he's gonna hurt it. Like, okay, maybe, but then you give him a shot.
But he's got that God-given talent. Like,
exactly.
That's just great. And you're telling me the Bears have 2 second-round picks again. You're telling me that even if it's a Ravens scenario where you have to trade into the bottom of the first round, you're telling me someone like the 49ers or the Patriots or the Saints wouldn't take 2 Bill Belichick would gobble up 2 second-round picks like that. That. And he would take it without even guessing, and you take Tua, and maybe you have a great marriage with Tua in Chicago.
Yeah. And Bill Belichick would still take the same player he was going to take because nobody knew about him.
Right, exactly.
So, I mean, like, you need to take a quarterback, and if Tua is available, he's the one with the best resume. He's the one that in healthy and height of his powers, he's probably the best quarterback.
Thanos out here.
So, I mean, you just got to look at it, in the best case scenario terms. And, I mean, that's all you can expect from these guys.
Right. And, well, you even boil it down. Like you said, it's best resume, best talent. You boil it down to the bare bones, and you come up with the same result. You mentioned the guys who are out there right now who are already in the NFL. Alex Smith has been thrown out there a lot. I like that, but I can't believe that man even wants to play football again after what happened to him. Like, that shocks me. If he does, great. He knows Nagy. He knows the offense. He'll probably come cheap. That's fine. But again, still the same point. You got to draft a quarterback.
Whatever scenario you get, unless, whatever happens and you get
the Seahawks cut Russell Wilson.
Right, exactly. Any realistic scenario, I don't care who you get. I don't care if you keep Mitch Trubisky. I don't care what. You have to draft a quarterback.
Yeah.
Because there's no for sure quarterbacks that anybody's going to trade. That's just not how the NFL works.
Right.
And there's no, free agent quarterbacks that are, likely going to sign with Chicago. True. I don't even know who's going to be a free agent this year. Is
this summer? Teddy, Marcus Mariota, Ryan Tannehill, Jameis Winston, Phillip Rivers, Drew Brees technically, and I don't know if Cam is a free agent or if he has 1 year left.
I think he has 1 year left, but I think they might.
I think everyone's treating him as a free agent.
Right, exactly. But the best case scenario out
Joe
of those,
Flacco too.
Okay.
Yeah,
the best case scenario out of any of those is Teddy Bridgewater, and he's more than likely. I see him staying with the Saints.
I think so.
I mean, he's a little older, but not that much older. I see him staying with the Saints. Drew Brees maybe plays 1-2 more years, retires.
I agree.
He takes over the Saints. He still has that same offense. He's comfortable, whatever. So I think in any situation other than Bears get Teddy Bridgewater, you have to draft a quarterback.
Yeah, the scenario I've worked out in my head is because there's rumors that Phillip Rivers wants to go home to play in Nashville. So how I've worked out in my head is Rivers goes to Tennessee, Bridgewater goes to L.A., and Brees stays in New Orleans to just finish out his career for the next 2-3 years.
And then Marcus Mariota's out of a job, and Marcus Mariota
probably signs as a backup with the Saints or Patriots.
Yeah.
Or Seahawks.
Where do you see, say Mitch Trubisky gets traded, where do you see him go?
Nobody's going to trade for him. I think he's just going to be the backup. To whoever the Bears get, I think he's just the backup. Which is fine. I think he's a perfectly fine backup quarterback. I think he'd be a better backup quarterback in the league. Like, I think as a backup, I think someone like the Seahawks or the Packers would take him. So I think that's fine. He's just not an above average starter. He's just not going to win you a championship at this point.
Yeah.
And to finish up on our Bears talk, Nagy said he's day to day and that if he's healthy, he's going to play, which is fine. Still, that's a little mysterious. I don't know. It's weird. That's still the whole how that game ended was still so weird. But if he's healthy, I'm all for playing him. Because you might as well see what you can get.
Because I guess you have to look at this season realistically, to even have a shot at the wild card, you have to win the next 6 games.
You have to run the table.
That's more than likely not going to happen with the schedule that the Bears have to face.
Right.
You're not going to run the table with Chase Daniels.
Or Tyler Bray.
So the only realistic, if he's healthy, he has to play. And if he's not healthy,
whatever.
If he's healthy and he doesn't play, I don't know what this Bears organization is doing.
Right. Yeah. It sounds like he's going to play as long as he's healthy, which is fine. See what you got. See what can happen. I'm all fine with that. We'll finish up. What do you think of the Bulls' new uniforms? Well, not new uniforms, but the City Edition.
Okay, so they've had, the past 2 years, they've had really good City Editions.
Yes,
they had
agree.
the white ones with the flag, then they did the black ones with the flag. These just look weird.
The all blue is weird.
They look like an AAU team type jersey. The ones that are super, super just colorful and just for no reason, which is, they don't look bad, but I think that the City jerseys from the last 2 years are so much better. And I know, I guess, the cool thing is, to keep updating them. And, I think they're better than some other City jerseys. Like, I didn't really like the 76ers ones.
Yeah,
right. The Mavs ones were like they were like retro. They were kind of weird.
Yeah.
Like, they were okay.
It was with the Pegasus, right?
Yeah, I think so.
That's
Something like
weird.
that. But these are okay. I don't want to see it more than one time.
Oh, I mean, you're gonna see him a lot at Lollapalooza. I guarantee you. Guarantee you that.
You know.
I guarantee that. I agree. The black ones with just the blue lettering and the red numbers and the red stars was great. I think last year's with the white, same concept, was good. This one is still cool. I still like it, but I don't need to see it more than a couple times.
Yeah.
And all the guys who get the Ryan Arcianato jersey for Lollapalooza, that'll be interesting. Oh, speaking of which, Melo's back. Speaking of Lollapalooza jerseys, the new Melo jersey, that's going to be popular.
Shout out Melo.
But he played all right.
He
in the
did.
opener.
I mean,
he played okay.
He played
as expected for a guy
Right.
in his first NBA action in
a year.
Almost a year, yeah.
I think
more than a year.
Yeah, I think he looked like he could still play. Obviously, he didn't shoot. I think it was 4 or 14.
Right.
But like you have to they literally.
There's some rust that needs to be knocked off there.
They literally signed him like a week ago.
Right.
He doesn't know
Not
how to
even.
play.
It was like 4 days
yeah,
ago,
exactly.
wasn't it?
He doesn't really know how to play in that offense. He was told he was going to be a starter. Damian Lillard wasn't out there. Like, yeah, they lose, but they don't have their best player. He was still able to, go up and down the court. I mean, he played mellow defense.
Right.
I mean, I think he's what you think he's going to be. I mean, he's not going to come back and be 2008 Melo ever again. I mean, he's 30-something.
I mean, even 2013, like early 2010s
when
Knicks,
he was first on the Knicks, right. So I think what Portland was trying to do is they don't have a solid three, and they're having a lot of injuries with their big men. Mm-hmm. So I think they're just trying to see it, what can work, adding more offense, because they have so much offense between CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard, and they want to try to spread that out. And at least have another threat out there, so people are like, "Oh, that's Carmelo. Like, we probably should guard him wherever he is."
I guarantee you, he's still good for I guarantee you, there's just gonna be a random 35-point Melo game at some point this season.
Yeah, I mean, for what he does, it's not like he was, banking on his super athleticism, 5 years ago. He's a shooter.
Well, on that one play he did, where he did try to catch a ball.
I wanted him to dunk. If he dunked. I forgot who he went up against. If he dunked on him, that would have been so nasty.
He tried to create a poster, and it was.
I mean, he just really wanted to do it so bad because nobody would have ever been like, "Oh, he's out of shape."
Yeah.
Oh, he can't play the NBA. Like, he can't do the physicality. But I mean, of course, I mean, it was. I forget who he played against, but I mean, it was a really, really good defender.
It was
that was up at the rim. So I mean, shout out to Melo. He's doing what he wants to do, and
I think what helps in this situation is he's not being paid a ridiculous amount of money anymore. So Portland was able to pay him a reasonable amount of money to just be that guy. He's not being paid superstar money anymore.
It was the rookie center Jackson Hayes, who's he's projected to be really
developing star.
Yeah, he's going to be a really, really good defensive player. He's huge. He's long. But yeah, I think that this is also a trial period. It's a non-guaranteed contract. Right. And I think he really just wants to see. I think realistically what happens with Melo is he does all right this season. He finishes out the season. He gets signed by either the Knicks or the Nuggets to finish out his career. He has, a last year where he goes around the NBA. I mean, he obviously won't have a Kobe type year where everybody, loves him and the arena's sold out for his last game there or whatever. But I mean, he'll have a year where he kind of just goes around and plays one more season and reminisces or whatever, and then it'll be done. I don't think he realistically knows he won't win a championship. Those days are over, and I think he realistically knows he won't be a star anymore. So I think he just wants to have the same exit that players like Dwayne Wade and Kobe Bryant
he wants the farewell tour.
He wants the farewell tour, which is, I mean, he was really, really good. People kind of forget about Melo that before LeBron James won a championship, so between 2003 and 2010, they were really, really close together in terms of how good they were viewed. And then when LeBron went to Miami, that just skyrocketed because then Melo went to the Knicks and it kind of just plateaued and fell off really quickly. So, I mean, Melo was really, really, really good before he went. I mean, even at the beginning stages of the Knicks, but halfway through his Knicks, tenure, it kind of fell off. And I think he deserves kind of to get recognized for what he was able to do early in his career, especially. But I think he understands how good he is right now and that he isn't going to be anywhere near as good as he was at the beginning of the decade.
He's never going to be that guy again. But Also, we don't talk enough about how when LeBron went to Miami, he just became like a 300-pound behemoth of just muscle.
He was so good.
He was enormous.
He was huge. I mean,
he
nobody.
was enormous.
What was crazy about that was like
Brendyn. I'm legit. He was like 300 pounds.
I know, and he lost so much weight when he went back to Cleveland. I don't know what's in Miami, but he gained so much. He gained a lot of weight, but was still able to be just as athletically efficient as he was in Cleveland. I don't know, but
I feel like his workouts were just him walking around with his own body weight.
Yeah.
Like, he was massive.
I mean, he was so scary, and I don't think anybody wanted to really contest him in the lane. Nope. And when they did, they got busted.
And that's why the Mavs won, because Dirk just the fadeaways just never go up against LeBron straight up. That was wild. And that's how we end with some LeBron James Miami talk. But that does it for us for the week. Me and Brendyn, we held down the fort this week. I think we did good.
I think we did really good.
I thought we crushed it. Who needs Nathan and Alex? We need them because we definitely can't do this week in and week out.
Please come back.
But they will be back at some point. I haven't looked at the basketball schedule, but whatever. It's fine. Everything's fine. But that does it for us this week. Alec and Gabby and Fisher will wrap up the week for you tomorrow. But that does it for us. We will see you on Monday. Thank you for listening as always. That does it for us.